that magma movement beneath the surface is intensifying. Residents near the volcano report constant vibrations, shaking walls and falling ash covering streets and rooftops. Evacuation zones remain active as emergency services move people away from high-risk areas. Shelters continue to fill as families arrive carrying essentials, uncertain whether they will return. Live footage shows lava glowing brighter as night falls, illuminating massive ash plumes drifting across nearby towns. Ashfall continues without interruption, reducing visibility and forcing road closures. Vehicles move slowly through grey clouds as headlights struggle to cut through volcanic haze. Volcanologists monitoring the eruption confirm ongoing lava effusion and sustained gas emissions. Thermal imaging reveals extremely high temperatures along the slopes, while ground deformation suggests continued pressure buildup inside the volcano. This type of activity often signals a prolonged eruption rather than a brief event. Captured on camera moments reveal the scale of the disaster. Ash falling like dark snow, power lines coated in volcanic dust, trees bending under the weight of debris. The environment changes minute by minute, with no clear indication of when the activity will subside. Emergency alerts remain active. Authorities warn of potential pyroclastic flows, sudden explosions, and collapsing lava fronts. These hazards can occur without warning, making constant monitoring essential. The danger zone remains restricted as conditions evolve rapidly. Drone footage circles the volcano, revealing glowing fissures, expanding lava channels, and thick ash columns rising vertically before spreading across the sky. Each tremor sends visible shockwaves through the ground, captured clearly on nearby cameras. As daylight fades, the eruption becomes even more dramatic. Lava fountains pulse rhythmically, lighting the clouds above in orange and red. Sound intensifies, echoing across the region as ash continues to fall uninterrupted. Health officials advise residents in surrounding areas to remain indoors due to fine volcanic particles suspended in the air. Breathing conditions worsen as ash density increases, affecting both humans and animals. Agricultural areas are blanketed, water sources are blocked, and transportation remains limited. The eruption continues, lava continues to flow, ash continues to rise. International monitoring agencies track the situation using satellites, seismic stations, and gas sensors. Data confirms sustained activity with no immediate signs of decline. Experts emphasize that volcanic behavior can change suddenly, even after long periods of steady output. Live cameras show emergency vehicles moving through ash-covered roads, rescue teams coordinating evacuations, and shelters operating at full capacity. The human impact remains visible as communities adapt to the ongoing threat. Mayan Volcano stands as a reminder of the planet's raw power. Despite advanced technology, eruptions like this remain unpredictable. The mountain releases energy accumulated over decades, reshaping the landscape in real time. The cycle continues: rumbling, lava flow, ash emission, evacuation updates, and continuous monitoring. The scene never truly resets, only evolves. Ash clouds continue drifting. Lava continues advancing. The ground continues shaking. This is not a replay. This is not a simulation. This is a live volcanic eruption. As the ash thickens and lava grows brighter, the volcano remains active and the situation remains dynamic. What appears stable can escalate at any moment. Cameras stay live. Monitoring continues around the clock. The eruption is ongoing. The alert level remains elevated.
Under construction pa naman po,
Evacuation
are.
and
Pero
as the
kung usually
camera
lagi po,
stays fixed on Mayon volcano, the cycle repeats. Lava flows, ash clouds, seismic tremors, and the relentless force of nature continuing without pause. The camera remains fixed on Mayon volcano as the landscape continues to change in real time. The mountain does not sleep. It breathes, rumbles,
Hindi pa
and
ho.
releases energy without warning. Lava continues to emerge from the crater, glowing intensely as it moves slowly but relentlessly down the slopes. The eruption is active. The situation is ongoing. Ash clouds rise continuously, expanding and thickening as they drift across the sky. Visibility changes from minute to minute as volcanic ash spreads over nearby towns, roads, and open land. The sound captured on camera is constant, a deep, low-frequency roar mixed with sharp, explosive bursts as gas escapes from deep within the earth. Seismic instruments confirm continuous volcanic tremors. The ground vibrates beneath nearby communities, and structures shake subtly but persistently. This type of sustained seismic activity suggests magma movement beneath the surface, increasing pressure and feeding the eruption without interruption. Live footage shows ash falling steadily, coating rooftops, streets, vehicles, and vegetation. The air appears heavy and dense, illuminated by streetlights struggling to cut through the gray haze. Evacuation zones remain
Hindi
enforced
po
as
siya
authorities
nagagayaan.
urge residents to move farther from the volcano's slopes. Emergency teams continue transporting families to temporary shelters. The flow of evacuees does not stop. Some arrive on foot, others by vehicle, all carrying what they can. The uncertainty is visible, but the evacuation continues as the volcano shows no signs of calming. Thermal cameras reveal extremely high temperatures along the lava channels. Molten rock advances slowly, consuming everything in its path. Vegetation ignites instantly as lava passes, leaving behind scorched ground and rising steam clouds that mix with volcanic ash. Drone footage provides a wider view of the eruption. Glowing fissures appear along the volcano's surface, opening and closing as pressure shifts. Ash columns rise vertically before spreading outward, carried by changing winds into surrounding regions. Ashfall intensifies at intervals, reducing visibility to near zero. Vehicles move cautiously through ash-covered roads, headlights glowing faintly through thick clouds. Traffic slows and transportation becomes increasingly difficult as conditions fluctuate. Health warnings remain active as fine volcanic particles fill the air. Prolonged exposure poses serious risks, especially for respiratory systems. Residents are advised
It's Friday, January 16th. We've got fog fog in the Inland Bay Valleys, dense fog advisories. Got a live picture up from the Truckee Airport. It's 10 degrees this morning early in Truckee, and you can see kind of frosty out there. Lake Tahoe, generally temperatures right around 32, 33 degrees this morning. It's going to be a nice day. Daytime highs in the Tahoe region are going to go about 42 degrees. Southern California, you guys are definitely on the warm side still. Well, a lot of the state is. We're going to see 60s and 70s throughout parts of the Bay Area, but Southern California, downtown Los Angeles again, goes 88 degrees, or 80 degrees, pardon me. So we got some cold in the Inland Bay Valleys and the valley fog. We've got warm at the coast. If you're at the coastal sections or above 1,800 feet, you've got a really nice day ahead. And we've had really nice days. There was a 6.0 earthquake at the Triple Juncture this morning around 7:25. Keep an eye on that. Truckee, as I mentioned, it's 46 degrees for a high. This spot at Venice Beach, you're going to go 73 for a daytime high. And then out towards Death Valley, out in Mojave, you're going to go 85 degrees, probably the warmest spot in the state. At 85 degrees. So pretty nice day, and the dense valley fog exists. We're looking at the Visalia area, Los Banos, really dense. Now, it's not as everywhere as it was a few weeks ago when it was just like in the Bay and up into Redding and down into the Grapevine, and it's more kind of centered right in the deep part of that Central Valley. So the southern San Joaquin Valley, everything flows this way, so it gets lower as you get towards the Delta. In the northern Sacramento Valley, everything gets lower. So all these low-lying spots like Walnut Grove and Davis, Winters, you're going to be seeing probably some pretty dense fog. You already are seeing some very dense fog. This is the shot from Grapevine up. This is kind of out towards Bakersfield. Again, I like this shot, and it kind of illustrates too the slope, right? Because you see it's kind of not clear, but the cooler air is draining down the hill. And so the lowest point is going to have the most fog and the slowest burn off. But on the edges, like places like Redding and Grapevine, Gorman, you're going to see a bit of a break. So we've got a lot to talk about today. I'm going to talk about Southern California a little bit as well as a health spa. Talk about it all the time, but I don't think you truly get it. I mean, you might, but I don't think people really get. It was a health spa, man. Late 1800s, early 1900s. Industrial Revolution comes along. People are getting sick, they're getting a little mental. So the doctors began prescribing for people to come out west. We'll talk about that, which I think is interesting because California wears so many hats. Here's the high amplitude ridge. That's high amplitude ridge for sure. The undercut is starting to happen. There's the ridge. Look, it goes straight up, as far up as, you're in Alaska. And then it goes all the way down. It troughs out, and it's starting to under break here a little bit, and that's what we're watching. So we're going to see that in the computer models coming up today. Mount Shasta goes 57 degrees. San Francisco goes 65 degrees. Los Angeles goes 80 degrees. Irvine, you go 80 degrees as well. So it's kind of again away from the low-lying San Joaquin, Sacramento Valley. You're gonna have it's another awesome day. Do we need rain? Yeah. We do. Are we going to see rain? I don't know. Here's the ridge. You can see the big bullseye, the donut, and then it tilts. Remember, we talked about that yesterday, that negative tilt, the ridge axis. I know it's hard. These maps are hard, but we're looking at the real deal stuff. So we're not sugarcoating this with some fancy TV graphics. We're using what the Weather Service uses. So there's the ridge axis, right? It's tilting back. And it's being undercut. So that's that big, tall ridge, and it's starting to lean in the future. This is the model, right? So it leans, and that undercut comes around the 21st, 22nd, right in here. That's sort of the beginning of a break. It looks like it. Can you tell much from this? No. But if I go all the way out to February 1st, which is forever away, that's a pattern right there. That's around February 1st, 2nd. That's a wet pattern. Wet. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. The one thing I would point out is that break in the jet stream didn't really show up yesterday, and this pattern didn't really show up yesterday. So the models are continuing to change. That it's somewhere around the 21st, though, things are going to start to break a little bit in the jet stream, and things are going to start to loosen up. Fingers crossed. Dude, thanks for letting me drink coffee. I swear. Okay. This is so much more fun than TV. Oh my God, TV. Because you would just go. You were like, it was like a running out. It was like a being a sprinter. 100-yard dash. You get the starting line, and you go, okay, ready, and you get guys on either side. ABCs over here, MBCs are okay, go. You just start spewing because you only got, I think I was rolling 3 minutes for everything. 3 minutes for everything. And so you could never, you really just hit, you were just like, 10, huge avalanche, huge landslide. Everything was huge and big, and none of it was, none of it was this. And this is just like, yeah, this is what's happening. It's not scary. So here's the sea level pressure. And we're looking for that first break, and it's around the 21st. And I'm just looking for blue. There's a little blue around the 21st, 22nd. So that's the jet stream getting close, undercutting. And then nothing, little something there, and then that big event in February 1st. That's not how it's going to time out, but it's nice to see light at the end of the tunnel, but it'll happen before that. The vertical, this is precipitable water. This shows us where the water is. From sea, it's that, okay, so this spire here, this big purple line, that is, just picture 5 Mississippi rivers, because that's the length of the Mississippi, at least, maybe a little longer. That is longer. And picture looking up and going, okay, from about where I am up to 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet, it's just water, but wider. But was it like 3 times, 4 times wider? It's so much water. That's what I'm trying to get at. It is so much water. So you watch where it goes. That's simple. And look how dry it is out. Look at the United States right there. This is this is down the road. This is on the 20th. But look at how dry it is all the way into the Mississippi and Ohio Valley, the Browns. So there's no fuel, little fuel there. And then you'll see our fuel come in on right there. That's that February 1 thing. Does that happen? Hope so. But I hope it happens sooner. And then this is just showing you where it's raining and where it's not. So January 23rd, there's a few sprinkles around Lake Tahoe, a little something Crescent City, and then that's the beginning of the February 1 thing. Oh, good thing we got all that rain when we did. And truthfully, we're so fortunate that we had that Southern California rain. Because remember, you forgetting, the lead story the other day was mudslides, Palisades mudslides, flooding, Ventura, blah, 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 which is, that all happened, but that all was needed, because if that didn't happen to that level, that much moisture, the last week of Santa Ana winds in Southern California, which they're not, there's no wind advisories today, but that last week would have been red flag warning every day, right? And there would have been fires. Because one thing I can assure you, when it's dry and there's wind, there will be fires. Think about all the touch points. This is Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta today goes 57 degrees. I always think about, and unfortunately, it's unfortunate to have to bring up, but like that, the unhoused, people living in their vans, whatever. Dude, they're smoking, they're lighting, they're barbecuing, they're doing whatever. But now you get a 100-mile-an-hour wind or 60-mile-an-hour wind day, and you're up in the Oxnard Hills, and you're bivouacking because you're looking for, you're doing your best, you're trying to survive, but there's no way to control that. There's too many touch points. So when you get red flag warning conditions and wind, there's always a fire. I can say it without a doubt, there's always a fire, especially in the Bay Area, Central Valley. So Mount Shasta, everybody. Beautiful day there. This is Alturas. They got a little fire. That's what these cameras are for, mostly. Picking out fire. That's interesting. You get a fire start. That's interesting. Alturas. Alturas is going to go 58 degrees. I'm wondering, that must be some kind of controlled burn or a house fire, but I don't see any residents. Crescent City, isn't that beautiful? You're waking up in Crescent City this morning, you win. You really do. Beautiful. But I wonder if you felt that. Chime in if you felt that. There was a 6.0 this morning at the triple point, the triple juncture. We're going to look at it, but I wonder if you felt it. It was offshore pretty far, and it was shallow enough. It'd be interesting if you felt it. It would have been looked like it was on the Juan de Fuca plate, but that would translate through. Anyway, Crescent City today goes 59, almost 60 degrees for a daytime high. Beautiful day. Fort Jones, you're going to go 58 degrees at Fort Jones. It was a cold start to the day. And you got some dense fog. You are the land of dense fog right there. That's cold too. Doesn't warm up. It'll burn off today, you guys. And then this is from Paradise. This is the Sutter Buttes. I just wanted to point out that you can see the Sutter Buttes from Paradise. And you can see, you know what else you can see? It's kind of cool. So this is up towards Chico up here, up in this area, up here. So this whole drains down. So the fog up at Redding is less than the fog down in Marysville because you're sloping downhill and the cold air just drains like the Sacramento River. That's what this is following. The fog and the cold air following the Sacramento River down. So Redding today, you're going to go in the mid-60s. Sacramento, you'd be lucky to hit 59, 60 degrees because you're right there at the confluence of the San Joaquin River, Sacramento River. Everything drains to the delta, which is essentially, this is called Sacramento. And that's the drainage pattern, but it's also the cold air pattern, which is the mechanism for the condensation to get the fog. It's the cold air and the moisture at the surface, which a river will do it. Hope that made sense. And if you think about it, isn't it stunning? This is Walnut Grove, foggy. To think about, I said this, I've said this before, but when you think about those two huge valleys, Sacramento and San Joaquin River, Sacramento River, all the drainage goes this way, kind of meets up in the delta, and then funnels out through the Golden Gate Bridge. That big. The whole landmass drains. And it's a huge, massive drainage basin, but it's massive mountains, it's massive snow, it's massive rivers, and it all drains out that little gap. I've seen stuff. I remember 82, the big flood there. You guys, maybe Walnut Grove goes 60 today. There's the gap of the Golden Gate Bridge right there. I can remember in 82, during that big El Nino, I was in college over at Berkeley, and this is the gap right here. That's the water that comes out. And of course, we were dumb, so we'd go out surfing, whatever. But we would be all the junk that would come out the gate during that El Nino would just kind of go right down the beach, right down to Ocean Beach. It just does. Everything does. So it was tree trunks, it was car parts, everything, because it was flooding. And so, when things flood, they couldn't clean it up quick enough. So this stuff was coming out. There'd be tree trunks in the water and floating, half submerged. I mean, it was a real thing. And imagine that, right? And the El Nino of '82 was an equal opportunity El Nino. In other words, it was wet north and south. This is South Lake Tahoe, 47 degrees today for a daytime high. Not enough snow. A lot of rain, not enough snow. We're doing fine. The 8-station index, 6-station index, that's our report card for water. But our report card for snow is like a C- because we need to get snow up in the mountains. Otherwise, spring and summer won't have that trickle down. The amount of snow that gets held, the amount of water that gets held in the snow is, it's beyond. It's huge. It's a giant aquifer, but frozen. And you need it. And if you don't get it, you don't water the stuff that needs to get watered. And we'll get it. That'll break. That's Big Pine. Big Pine today is going to go 63 degrees. Next picture, Soledad. They're going to go 60. What did I put Soledad at? 66. Soledad, Salinas Valley. Right? And then, God, it's beautiful too, right? Chumash Land. This is Point Conception. Surf's down. Surf advisories have been dropped. They have a sneaker wave thing out again. I'm like, stop. Seriously. Well, plus, it's like sneaker waves. What your grandma would tell you to watch out for. I got a little beef with the Weather Service about this, and they're right because they're government. But I'm like, it just sounds like if you watch Dora the Explorer, it just reminded me of Swiper the Fox. You remember Swiper? I had little kids at the time, so I remember Swiper. But it's like he's sneaking around. Well, it's like sneaker waves. It's like, that's not what they do, man. And you're sort of dumbing it down, really, because just go set waves. Yeah, just call it sneaker waves. Just sounds like a comic book or some such. But I did actually get into it with one of the Weather Service guys a long time ago, and they I just was like that. Only because I think we should be treated like adults. Like we shouldn't treat the Like sharks don't attack; they bite because they're not coming after you. Waves aren't sneaking up on you, man. They just aren't. You call them pay attention waves, right? Okay, there you go. See, how many times a day do I do that? The mistake you guys made yesterday was telling me to not to stay in my lane, which is now look what happened. Look what you've done. This is the San Joaquin Valley, and this is that drainage thing again, right? Isn't that beautiful? So this is up by Grapevine, and you can see the dense fog. It's really, but it's narrow. It's not. Last time we had that big fog event, it was foggy all the way up into this camera. But this part of the valley, the south end of the San Joaquin, is draining that way towards Sacramento, and then Redding is draining this way, which is Redding is way up there. Got some interesting stuff today on Southern California I think you'll like. This is, Los Angeles, speaking of Southern California, because I was talking about the health spa craze. And I think the Industrial Revolution directly triggered it, because when people started getting into cities, they freaked out. When people freaked out, they'd send them to Southern California. Now, a lot of that, doctors were like prescribing it. Like, you have tuberculosis, go to San Diego. My own story and my family, and that's Los Angeles off in the distance there. My dad's mom, there's LA. My dad's mom had breast cancer in 1930, somewhere around that, maybe 32. And she was dying. And they didn't know what to do, so they saved up all their money, and he went with her. He was only like 6 years old. They put him on a steamship, and they went all the way to San Diego and put her up in a nice hotel by the ocean, not to die, but to get better. She died. But that was like, that was what you did. And the weird part is, it did work in many cases. We'll talk about that a little bit. So Los Angeles today is going to go 80 degrees again today. Beautiful down there. Air quality is pretty good too. This is, Ridgecrest? Yeah, Ridgecrest, 72 degrees. Ridgecrest, and it looks like we're looking up towards the White Mountains. You can set me straight on that if you want. This is kind of towards the north and the west. I think that's, again, my screen is so, every once in a while, I'll go, is that a mountain or is that like a cracker on my screen? I think that's a mountain. I think that's the White Mountains are out towards Whitney. And then this is Irvine. I don't like this shot a lot. And then I think that's Saddleback Mountain back there. Yeah, is that Saddleback? Stop me if I'm wrong. Saddleback, yeah. Highest peak in Orange County. Irvine, beautiful town, by the way. Irvine today is going to go 77 degrees, 80 degrees. I was a little low on that. And then we're looking at temperatures for today. So thanks for bearing with. Love you guys for chiming in. Love all the comments. I see some people are using this like a podcast, which is weird because I'm a meteorologist, but I get it because it's weather. It's kind of like, you know what it's like? It's like a mullet. I think I said this a long time ago, but it's like a mullet. It's like, it's like weather in the front, party in the back. Business in the front. And there's the whole term of business, all business here, party in the back. It's kind of like that because we do the back end is north to south California, and after the models, and then we do nature snacks and earthquakes and surf. So party on the backside. These are the highs for today. Beautiful. And so if you're not in the dead Central Valley, you can kind of see this here, right? Let's see if I can do it. See the warmth, how it drains, and it gets cooler as you get down towards the delta. And then does that work? Yeah, it's cooler down these low-lying areas. So that would be just the drainage, the topography. And then this is tomorrow, which is actually a little bit warmer than today. Yeah, buddy. And then I saw some wind. I picked up a little wind. Like these are surface maps. So we're looking at California. This is the dense fog advisory, which is pretty prolific. They dropped it for Marin County. Marin County had a pretty dense fog advisory earlier, but you can see if it's hanging in. You can see the North Valley up around Chico. You're going to get some breaks. Looks like it's going to hang in just below the Southern Buttes down towards Winters. And that, again, would make sense because this is the Delta where everybody... I mean, think about that valley. Those valleys draining. And everything goes out through there. That's mind-boggling to me. I know it, and I've always known that, but when I really think about it, I go, that's mind-boggling. That's a lot of drainage. Here's that high-amplitude ridge again. Yeah. What do you see? That's interesting. Sometimes I look at these cold. Okay, so there's the ridge. But look at how, I mean, that's up into Alaska. And the trough comes down. And when they get amplified like this, they have a good it's more of an opportunity to break down. So that's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen sooner than later. So the models may not actually be correct. The ridge of high pressure is here. That's why, right, this is on the surface. These are air quality alerts, dense fog advisories, freezing fog advisories. That's all high pressure inversion stuff. Same thing here, high pressure inversion stuff. And then you got snaker waves along the coast, which, we should, I was going to say something about sneaker inversions, but this is high wind stuff. And then over here, because you're in the trough zone, right, this is jet stream, you're seeing cold air stuff, winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings, really cold, really just, that's in the trough, inclement weather. So when you're under one of these, you're almost always nice. That gold is wind. And that's wind because it's in it's between the pressure systems, the high and the low, and the gradient, where the gradient gets close, where they're close together, and that gold is where you get the strong winds. It's a pressure differential. Big, big earthquake, I think. But it's funny, I'm not seeing a lot on it. It's 200 miles west of Bandon, Oregon, but it's out at that triple point. And it ran, went like, let's see, here it is, 6.0 this morning, about 8 o'clock, 7:30. What time? I had it at 7:25 this morning. That's a big quake. No tsunami issued. I looked at the shake map, but didn't show anything. Shake maps are awesome because they just take, who's in the area. But because it's out in the middle of nowhere, no shake map. But 6.0, no tsunami issued. It's kind of shallow, a couple hundred miles offshore, Bandon Dunes. The surf's dropped today. That's why I'm even considering going out. Like I said, it's getting harder to put that wetsuit on, not because I can't put it on, because it's just cold and frosty out there. And by the way, the shark thing's getting weird, right? I mean, I think we mentioned yesterday, like 10, I think there were 10, brushes or encounters in 2025, last year. That's the most since the 70s. We used to have a lot in the 70s. That's what I remember a lot. It's right around Jaws came out, which is ironic. But it's just kind of sharky. And it shouldn't be, because this is the time of year where the whites, the whites come in September and October, essentially. That's when we always, because they're the pups, the seal pups, the babies, up at Point Reyes and at Cerro and, and Año Nuevo, the babies are learning to swim, and that's what the sharks like. And so in this time of year, typically, it gets a little quieter, but it's not very quiet. I know. This is Ocean Beach. I don't see anybody out today. There are a couple guys. Let's see if we can, let's do another one. Want to? This one's a weird camera. Let's use Central, or I'll do this one. This is north. This is kind of by the old Cliff House, by the old playland at the beach, actually. Bob Weiss's old surf shop. Tide's a little high. That's what's happening. See, it's so deep, it's not breaking. Tide's high this morning, drops down this afternoon. This is Point Conception. I think it's always just awesome to be able to just land out there at the tip of the world. Call it the Southern Bite. Looks like somebody took a bite out of it when you look at it on the map. And things change. Once you get around that point, the fishing changes, surf changes, the people change. That's what we're going to talk about in a second here. I should get to it. Talking about California and health. This is San Francisco, the Avenues, Golden Gate Bridge. Snates are snacking hard. I don't know. This one hasn't been working for me. This is North Star. I'm going to hang in for a second. Let's give him a break. This camera keeps having issues, so it's driving me nuts. But it's probably user operator error. So they're skiing. It's about 34 degrees at North Star right now. Well, it's 35. I just saw it right there. And it's a beautiful day. Mammoth, the woolly mammoth. Mammoth wasn't named for mammoth bones. It was named for Mammoth Mining Company. But I'll bet you the miners probably found some mammoth bones, and that's how the company got named. And that's how the company became Mammoth. And then this, supposedly, was named after the Mammoth Mining Company because I think that's where they were mining. And the McCoys developed this mountain back a long time ago. Big family of those guys. And then this is Palisades, Tahoe. Not enough snow, you guys. Okay, so we're going to talk about Southern California right now. We're talking about, this is Coronado. This was a health kind of retreat, right? We talked about that. So, let me see, I was going to read this because I think it's fascinating. A lot of people don't realize Southern California wasn't built as an entertainment capital. It was built as a health destination, late 1800s, early 1900s. So, the Industrial Revolution, people were told by their doctors, if you had these tuberculosis or consumption or whatever, to go west, go to southwest because of the air, and it made you better. It was an actual prescription. People suffering from tuberculosis, asthma, exhaustion, lung disease, nervous disorders were sent to Southern California because the climate was considered therapeutic. The dry air helped breathing, so on and so forth, and it helped mental illness. A lot of people were going nutty living in those cities. So entire towns like Pasadena, Monrovia, Ojai, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, San Diego, entire towns were built around the health industry and as a place to recover. So it changed LA because people stayed, and it wasn't just regular people. People who could afford to come out here tended to be a little bit higher end. And so they would get out here and they would stay. And when I read this list of people that stayed to get better, like John Muir, Helen Keller, this is the tip of the iceberg for the people who moved out here for their health to get better. Helen Keller, Jack London, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, D.W. Griffith, W.C. Fields, right? Entertainment industry. They came out here for that, but then that's Hollywood grew up around it. Hollywood grew up for another reason too, because of the sun and the ability to mount outdoor shooting. But it also had to do with these people that were coming out here to get healthy. Robert Louis Stevenson, Teddy Roosevelt, Amy Semple McPherson was that evangelist, young woman who came from the West or the East, came out here and developed this massive following, kind of like Billy Graham-esque, but bigger. Ansel Adams, Irving Berlin, Greta Garbo. So they came out here and they stayed. And, you know, in the cities, the Industrial Revolution messed up a lot of people. Cities messed up a lot of people. And they started making those connections because the air quality was bad. And people were getting nutty. So people came to Southern California, and then this whole thing developed. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday, this whole, you know, renaissance back to the Spanish times, and you know, this romanticizing, and this LA was in movies and Disneyland. It just became this thing that everybody wanted it to be, and it started as a health spa. And Coronado was one of the most prolific of those spas. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. This state has such a fascinating history. And again, if you want to just do a Google search of the people that moved here for their health, you're going to die. It's late 1800s, early 1900s. I told you my story about my grandma, my dad's mom who died, and they sent her down to San Diego to get better because that was all they could do. And she died. But the thing that was weird, a lot of people got better, like a lot of people, from being out in the sun. So that, you know, it did work to some extent, but they just didn't have it fine-tuned. So it's interesting. Venice Beach, the most entertaining camera, live camera. Okay, take care. See you tomorrow, Saturday. But 49ers, right?